Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's about 5 past, so we better get started. I'm just going to introduce you to the man of the moment. But first, my name's David Blackmore. I'm the Global Brand Ambassador for both Glenmorangie and Ardbeg. Normally, you'd have the misfortune of listening to me, but you're very lucky to have the man himself, Mikey Heads, who is the Ardbeg Distillery Manager, all the way over the other side of the world, all the way from Islay. Last day of a long trip. Of a long and tiring trip. So hopefully you'll survive.
Jet lagged ever so slightly. Yes. You know what I think? I'm somewhere.
One little point. Obviously, we weren't expecting it to be quite so sunny still, so it's a little difficult to see the screen. We apologise. That wasn't something that we thought about until we got up here. So anyway, over to you, Mickey.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, David. Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Well, as David said, my name is Mickey, or Michael, my proper name, but everybody calls me Mickey. Can you hear me at the back okay? Yeah, and more importantly, can you understand me? That makes it a little bit better. We're off to a good start then, because sometimes I kind of go a little bit quickly. So I'm here today to tell you a little bit of Ardbeg. Has anyone visited Ardbeg? Anyone in the room? 1 or 2 people. So you've been some of the lucky people to go and see us. I'll apologise now for the slides, because I brought a little presentation, because my idea was to paint a little picture in your mind and show you what we do, and so you can imagine it when you're drinking the whiskey. So where I live is, this is where I work. I look after this wonderful distillery. This little bit here on the right, if you can see down there, is my home. This is where I live. You know, so the commute for me to work is, as you can tell, it's pretty easy. I leave for work at 7:29 and I get there before 7:30. So I live here, my office is in here. So this is a distillery that we know. So I take it everyone has tasted some Ardbeg before. Is this a first for anyone? You're all Ardbeg, a first for everybody. You're very welcome. That's what we like to see, new people coming in and tasting. So this is a little bit about where we are. This is Scotland. This is Islay. On the west coast, city of Glasgow here, city of Edinburgh here. So we're a little bit south of there. Just to the south of us here is Ireland. We're about 25 miles or so. So Islay is located on the west coast. You'll see on the map here we have big famous neighbours as well, which I won't name to you today. But we're situated on the southeast coast. Ardbeg, a next door neighbour, and another I want to have a little bit of an attachment with, because I did all my training at Lafroig many years ago. So I used to work there, and that was the first time I really came in to work at Ardbeg, because we were owned by the same company, and who owned Lafroig and Ardbeg at that time. So I've been in the making whiskey for about 34 years this year. It's kind of sad, really. I don't know how to do anything else, but it's something I really enjoy. And when you come to places like this is my first time in San Francisco. So I've been wanting to come here for many years. So when I heard it was coming this year, I thought, yeah, I'm going to enjoy this. So I had a tour around the city today. I did the tourist bit. Fantastic place. Really great city. You live in a lovely part of the world. So this is where I live, and that's where we're situated. I don't know if you can see this little slide, but Ardbeg, in about the last 15 years, Ardbeg has probably become known for its single malt. So prior to that, it was sort of getting closed down, making a little bit of whiskey for blend. It was not doing a huge amount for single malt. So 15 years ago, when Glenmorangie bought the company, they bottled some of the vintages, you know, the 74s, 75, the 78 vintages. That became a bit of a cult for people. Ardbeg was also one of the first distilleries to sort of, if you like, rise again from the ashes, because distilleries closed down. Ardbeg closed down in 1981, opened again in 1989. My dad worked at Port Ellen Distillery at that time, and Port Ellen closed in 1983, so never to reopen again. You know, so it was very unusual for distilleries to, if they were closed down, to come back again and reopen. It just didn't happen. And in the early 79, 80, when I started in the business, there was a big dip in whiskey making. I mean, there was lakes of whiskey around. We had 136 distilleries working 7 days a week making whiskey. A lot of lake of whiskey around. So a lot of places closed down, never to reopen. Ardbeg, is that going to start? No, it's not working. You want to click that? Okay. It just wants to restart on it, so just click it down. Okay. That's it. Yeah, there we go. So this is a little bit of the distillery as I was talking about. This was Ardbeg when I knew it. When I first came into contact with Ardbeg in about 1989, and it was like this. I was the brewer at the time, which I was in charge of production, and I would come up to the distillery on a Sunday night, and I would have a screwdriver in one pocket and a spanner in the other, and we'd just try and keep the place running. It was very, very old, not a lot of money getting spent on it, and this is it now, since 1997, since Glenmorangie bought it over. Now at that time, Glenmorangie, they owned Glenmorangie, Glenmurray, and then they came into Ardbeg, because in the mid-90s, single malt really started to take off. Can I ask how long people have been drinking single malt here? 10 years, 20, 30, yeah? Really good, so usually it's up to about 20, 25 years ago. If you've been drinking single malt for 20, 25 years, that's about when really the boom time, if you want, is to start. And single malt got really popular, especially the Islay style, because the Islay style of whiskey that we make, this really rich, full-bodied, heavy, peaty whiskey, was always used as a good base for a blend. You know, you put a little bit in a bottle and they use the different Speysides or the Highlands and make up the blend for it. So that was used really for that. So after around about the mid-90s, the late 90s, it started to really grow and benefit. Now, on Islay, we have 8 distilleries. In those days, it was very quiet. I remember when the production was very low at the distilleries. Now, all the distilleries are really busy. You wonderful people who like our single malt means we have to work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In fact, we just started at Ardbeg about 3 months ago. We took on 6 new people at the distillery, just so we can work on crews and get new people in the distillery, so we can keep the distillery running longer to make that little bit more single malt. Nowadays at Ardbeg, in those days Ardbeg did blending. 99.9% of the whiskey went for blend. Today, 100% of everything we make goes to make single malt. So it's gone full circle. From 1815, nearly 200 years ago, we made single malt, we then changed to blend, and now we're back and gone full circle. By the way, I mentioned 1815. 2 years' time, we've got a big anniversary. You know, we're 200 years old in 2015, so we've got I'm sure we'll have a big event planned for there. Now, any committee members here? Yeah? Good for you. There's only 1 or 2, but you need to come and join. This is a committee here in the States. We have about, what did we say, 13,636 committee members or club members. We've got about 80,000 worldwide now, and we do some special bottlings, and some of the different bottlings that we do are very, very well sought after. So did anyone get anything like Galileo last year? Did you see the Galileo? We've got something coming out on the 1st of June this year, which you'll really like. It's called Ardbeg. Keep an eye out for it. We're going to do that. It's really nice, different style, but I'm sure it'll be really well sought after. So this is the committee. On Festival Day, 1st of June, we have a big sort of party day at Ardbeg. There's hundreds of people come. Maybe last year we had about 1,000 people at the distillery, doing fun days, fun tastings, lots of bits of fun and games. You know, so if you get the chance to come over, keep that date in mind. The last Saturday in May or first Saturday in June is the date for it. So the committee is very important for us. We do these sort of special bottlings for them. We try and give them something back. So if you get to these party days, I think hopefully there might be something here in San Francisco on that day, a bit of fun day. So if you hear about it, if you go online, come along and have a bit of fun. It'll be well worth it. So this is just a little bit of the things that we do at the festival. People coming along, tasting some music, bits of fun. So it's a really nice place to come. So if you get to come over, come and see us. So a little bit about how we do it. I'm a distiller, so about making whiskey is what I do. So the ones which is very important for us, soft peaty loch water. I'll tell you a little bit more about it as we go through. Peat, because that's what gives us the flavour, and that's what our indigenous fuel is, and that's why we flavour the malt with the peat. Wooden washbacks, which give a flavour and texture. Copper purifier in the still. I'm racing through them, but there's another picture there, which adds to the complexity of the spirit. American oak casks, which we mostly mature in, and then everything for us is non-chill filtered, so you get the full texture, full mouthfeel from the whiskies that we produce. So this is the water. I don't know if you can see that at the back, can you? A little bit. This is Loch Ugadal, where the water for Ardbeg comes from. On the hills, about 800 feet up, about 4 miles from the distillery. Ugadal means dark place. So the Atlantic rains come in, pour onto the hills, it runs through the peat and it gathers in the loch. And our water's very brown and very peaty. We don't drink tea or coffee on Islay. We just flavour the water to give you that flavour. It's really that colour at times. So it's very, very peaty water. So that's the water supply, which is very important. For us, it's not so important for flavour, because the flavour is going to come from other things. It's going to come from that peated malt and that peat smoke that's going to give the flavour. And it's also going to come from the casks, which give it there. And I'll talk you through that as we go through the whiskies. Another loch that we do, the second loch, a lower one, which we collect, and this one feeds the distillery. It's called Arraighnam Based. Did anyone get a bottle of Arraighnam Based when it was on its way? Yeah, you're a lucky man. People keep asking for it, but I'm afraid it's all gone. And then this is a big thing, peat, that we use. My first job 30 odd years ago, I used to go out to have to cut peat every spring. There was 3 of us went out there onto the moss from about March through to September, and we cut about 800 tons of it at a time, just 3 of us. So this is very important. On Islay, it's what we call coastal peat. It contains heathers, grasses, sphagnum moss, and that rots down. And you lay a fine layer of it down every year. So although we dig it out, it does regenerate. It takes a long time, take a few hundred years to get it back, but it does regenerate again. And then within the peat, because it's low-lying on beach, there's sand in among it, there's seaweed. You get the Atlantic spray coming off there, and it rains down on it, it's absorbed into it. So you get that saltiness that comes from a lot from the peat as well. So it's a very important part for us. That's just a little picture of me back in 1980. First job I had when cutting peat on it. I was about 2 stone lighted in those days. It's hard work. If you're working 6 in the morning till 6 at night, 6 days a week doing this kind of work, yeah, you're pretty fit. I wish I could still do it, to be honest, but never mind. So that's a picture of the peat moss, and you can see how we cut it. Take the turf here, and then the peat below. Take 2 layers out below. It's not a great picture that we can see today, but it's an important part for the flavouring. It's also our indigenous fuel in Islay. We had no coal, we had no wood. It was peat that we burned, and that was for fuel, that was for heating. Another thing that we do, you don't see it here, we use Oregon pine, Douglas fir types of washbacks, wooden washbacks we have. So that adds a lot of soapy, waxy texture to the spirit. It's very important for the mouthfeel and for during fermentation. This is a hopeless picture today, but on the still we've got a little purifier when we distill off. We're one of the only distilleries that has this. As you distill off, there's a little pot that recycles a lot of the vapour, and that recycles it down into the still. We redistill it. Yeah.
Can you explain what a washback is?
A washback is a fermenting vessel. So when we extract the starches or the sugars from the malt, we drain it into a fermenting vessel. We call it a washback. We then pitch yeast into it and we start to make beer, really. And then from then on, we then distill it. So the washback is quite important because we get secondary fermentation, break down the sugars also in there, and we ferment it for about 52 hours until it's ready to be distilled. It then becomes a liquid called wash that we then distill. So the first distillation is wash in here, and then we make the final spirit using the purifier. And that gives us a lot of complexity and a lot of sweetness in Ardbeg, because although we've got a really heavy peated malt whiskey, there's got a softness and there's a sweetness about Ardbeg as well. And I think that's why a lot of people like it. I'm pretty sure it is from there. So again, also, with being part of the Glenmorangie company, we're renowned in the business for our wood management and what we do with wood. My boss, Dr. Bill Lumsden, I don't know if any of you ever met him before. He's one of the people in the industry who's done a lot of things with experimentation with wood. So wood is very important for whiskey making. 50% of the flavour for Ardbeg will come from the distillery, and 50% will come from the wood. So there's no point in distilling good whiskey and putting it in a container that shouldn't be doing its job. So we use mainly ex-American bourbon casks. We use some sherry butts, and we also use some other bits and pieces as well, which I'll tell you as we go through in a little while as well, because we'll start drinking whiskey very shortly. So don't worry about it, we'll get there. Also, we matured a lot of our whiskey in Islay. We're on an island beside the sea. You get an exchange of atmospheres, a little bit of saltiness going through. The Atlantic spray is battering off the roofs of our warehouses for about 6 months of the year. You know, so it's right there by the sea, so that's quite important to us. And then also non-chill filtering. That means when we take the whiskey from the barrel, we just take it out, barrier filter it to take out any little bits of charring or salt or solids from it, and then straight into the bottle, and you get the full character and flavour from it. So that's very important for us as well. So now for the good stuff. Now to make whiskey. A quick talk through just to show you. So we're going to do the Ardbeg 10 first. So it's the top left, I think, on your sheet. So this is our 10-year-old, sorry.
What does a chill filtering do that yours?
Chill, what happens is if you chill it right down, all the natural fats and lipids come out, and you can filter them by putting them through a fine membrane and take them out. We don't do that. We just prefer just to fill it straight from the cask and barrier filter the solids. So it takes, we think it keeps more of the mouthfeel and the texture in the whiskey. So that's what we do with all ours. So they're all non-chill filtered when you get them. This is Ardbeg 10. You can see when you look at it, it's very, very pale in colour. We don't do any colouring in whiskies either. It's just as it comes from the cask. So it's very light. If you twirl it around, you will see the oiliness in the glass as well. We call it the legs on the glass. You can see there it holds it, and then it slowly starts to run. So this is coming from the peat smoke and the phenolics. This is made with malt of about 50 to 55 parts per million. So it's really, really heavy, really rich and smoky. We use the heaviest malted barley of any of the distilleries within the business, so that's what we have to get this character. What you're going to be drinking in your glass, though, is around about 20 to 25 within that level. So you've not got this full 50 parts. So it's quite light in colour, a little bit of nose on the glass. Get an initial sweetness. There's a little bit of peat smoke that's never dominant with Ardbeg. There's a sweetness, a little bit of citrusy note to it. And then we got this, what we call smoked fish and tarry rope. So if you can imagine that sort of character coming from the peat, a little bit of the saltiness. If you're pulling your boat in, or you have a boat and you get that saltiness in your hand, that type of character. So very light in colour. I'll try a little sip. This is 46%, so a little sip. You get that initial sweetness, saltiness in the tongue, and then it covers your mouth. You get that oily coating. Then that peat smoke just starts to grow and build and build and build. And then you get that really rich, licoricey coffee note at the back of it. When you're home at the week, or through the weekend, or maybe even the beginning of the week next week, we say it's got a really long finish. You know, so you'll be something just about down here, and you'll think, that's the Ardbeg. You know, so it does. It has a real big finish. That's what it holds and holds and just builds and builds and builds from here. So this is our 10-year-old. You can add a little bit of water to this. Just opens it out a little bit. You bring out more of the floral sort of fruitier notes with it, and it actually gives you more of the phenolics, because the phenolics will open out and be even more powerful when you add a little bit of water to it. And it doesn't take a lot, just a splash. Yep.
When you're tasting in the distillery, do you typically taste it with a lot of water?
If we're doing tasting, if we're nosing the new make spirit before we fill it into cask, we do 1 measure of spirit and 2 measures of water. So we dilute it with 2 lots of water right down, because you can then pick out the phenolics. And you get all the dark, the smoky notes, the rubbery, you know, it comes out in different characters. So with new make, it's twice. If I'm drinking it at home, I don't put any water in it at all. I mean, this is 46% alcohol at the moment. That means it's already 54% water. So you need to be really careful when you add water, you know. So do it with caution. Just a small bit at a time. So so remember that. So this is our 10-year-old, really nice. What we're known for, we use first and second fill American oak for this. So there's a combination of the casks in this. First fill American oak, when it comes from us, it's had Barrick's bourbon in it for 3 to 4 years. We take it over to Scotland. We fill it into Ardbeg once, lasts for 10 years, and then a second time, another 10 years. So we use them twice. So we use a combination of these 2 casks when we put it together. So from first fill, you get lots of bits of vanilla, tropical sort of fruity notes, a little bit of caramel, that type of character. From the second fill, you get sort of spicy and sort of more floral notes to it. So a combination of both gives you that lightness, and that's why the colour is very, very light as well. So again, just pure natural colour. Excuse me, somewhat. We're going to do a little story about one now. We tell a little bit of stories about our whiskey as well. I mean, 10-year-old is what we do. Some of the other whiskies, the next 2 we're going to taste, we tell a little bit of stories about them. This one is, the next one we're going to do is Corryvreckan, which is in the middle at the back, the middle row. Corryvreckan's called after what we call a whirlpool in the sea. In Scotland here, this is the second biggest whirlpool in the world. There's a big deep trench between the 2 islands, and there's a pinnacle of rock comes up, and the tide circles round about it, and it spins, and it's quite a piece of, when you see it, it's very, very impressive and very dangerous. I don't know if you can see this or not, but I was in a boat in it last year, and we were down in this level. That's a 15-foot wall of water, and then there's a boat at the other level. You know, so if you get a chance to come and do it, it's something else. It's not as good a picture, but you can see it, so it's very impressive. So we tell a little bit of stories about the whiskey. The reason I'm telling you with this one for Curry Wrekin is simply because this is a big whiskey, really big flavoured whiskey on it. We use, as the heart of this, new French oak barrels. So that's barrels, Limousin oak, which have not been used for anything. And we use this along with the American oak to soften it. Yes? No, we don't use Maker's Mark barrels. No, we have 2 or 3 different suppliers from America, but Maker's Mark's not one of them that we do. So but we have 3 that we deal with all the time, the whole time. So American oak is the heart of it. It's round about this, and in the middle of it we have this French oak, which is very, very powerful, and you don't need a lot of it. So French oak gives you different characters. So in this one, if you want to take the glass with the Curry Wrekin, this is a different sort of spicy note to this. It's a different colour. Look at the colour. It's much darker from the new oak. Puts a lot of colour into it. Very oily in the glass. You can see this doesn't want to leave the glass alone. It just clings to it. This one's also 57.1%. So it's 114 proof, I think that makes it, something like that. So this one will take a little bit of water. So if you nose this one a little bit, different types of spice in this one. Like menthol, cloves, that type of character coming through from the French oak. You still have that peat smoke, it's always there in the background to it. A little bit of water added to this one first will help it, because it is pretty powerful. So a little splash of water. We get some of the red berried fruit coming in this one as well. It's like the cherries and blackberries in this that comes through at the back end of this. There's also sort of chili notes and a little bit of Tabasco, that type of character too. It's very, very peppery. So a little taste.
Is this also distilled at your facility?
Yep, it's also distilled at the distillery, yeah. The main difference in this is just wood maturation. It's made with the exact same whiskey as we use for the 10-year-old. The new make is exactly the same, except the big difference in this, it's big and powerful, isn't it? The wood is the big difference in this. You can see the difference the wood makes in this whiskey. So the French oak gives it a completely different, gives it a really big mouthfeel. It's quite drying in your mouth now as well. You can feel that drying in your mouth. Big, big oily whiskey, and really big, huge finish on it. Very peppery and quite spicy at the back as well. So again, this one, if you're going through them at a minute, is put it down, come back to it in 5 minutes, and it'll change and it'll soften it up a little bit. We've only got about 45 minutes for this. These whiskies need a little bit of time to open up. You know, you don't need to leave them. Please drink them, but it does just change. If you can leave them, add a bit of water, it will change them and soften them an awful lot. So that seagull's starting to quite enjoy it as well, I think. So we're going to do a little one. Now this is probably my favourite Ardbeg, the third one along the top. This one's called Ugadal. We call this one Ugadal after the loch that supplies the water. He showed you the picture earlier. It means dark place. You can see the colour in this. I need to tell you that the whiskies that we drank there today are the 10-year-old. I mean, we've been very lucky with a lot of the writers and the critics and the tasters. The 10-year-old Ardbeg won the world's best whiskey in 2008. Ugadal that we're drinking just now won the world's best whiskey in 2009, single malt whiskey. And then Curry Wrekin won it in 2010. You know, so we've been very lucky to win lots of awards with the whiskies that we do. You know, a lot of the writers and the tasters like what we do. So this, for me, is my favourite Ardbeg. So this, if you want something really nice after your dinner, and then having contemplate a quiet moment in an evening after a hard day in the office. I thought one way to improve your day in the office, if you're having a bad day in the office, take a bottle of this and just put it in the glass and just nose it every now and again, and it'll improve your day no end. It's got a lovely nose to it. It's really rich and spicy. The character in this is lots of dark fruit, dates and raisins, a little bit of cinnamon spice. And this, we say it's smoky and sweet, but there's linseed oil, there's lots of things. It's very, very complex. It's also 54.2. So it's what we call vat strength. This was the first ever bottling of Ugadil was done at 54.2, and we try and put this together at the same strength each time. We're allowed to get it 0.2 either way legally back in the UK, and we try and get this to the same strength. Again, completely natural colour. The big difference within this one is that we use Oloroso sherry butts from Spain. So the American oak again that we used before, but the main component is the Oloroso sherry wood. That gives the richness and the depth and the complexity in this. Again, exactly the same you-make distillation that's used for the 10 and for the Corrie Reckon, just that the difference again is the wood and the different character by the wood maturation. So, a little taste on this one. Really full, very unctuous and chewy, oily. You get that sort of rich spiciness, lots of leathery notes, a little bit of oranges coming through on it as well. Really rich and full-bodied, and the finish just goes on and on and on. So you can see what I mean. This, you don't even need to drink this one at a time. You can just keep nosing it. You know, it's just got a beautiful, absolutely beautiful full nose on it. So, but really nice style of Ardbeg. So what's the favourite so far? 10 Ugadil. This one, Ugadil, yeah, yeah. It's really nice. It's always been my favourite. You know, everyone asks me what's my favourite Ardbeg, and this is it. You know, so really nice whiskey. Yeah, I brought a little sample for the next one. If I get the right glass, it's the one on the right, the bottom right. This is what we would call a little bit of work in progress. It's a little sample from a cask in the distillery, just a one single barrel. It's what I really like. It's a nice style for Ardbeg. It's from a first fill American oak cask, and for me, Ardbeg and first fill American oak is really as good as it can be. This one's a 10-year-old cask. It's 57.4. It's not about the strength you would get in. We don't do anything by half, do we really? It's got to be full strength or nothing. So it's very rich. You can see the nose in this I was telling you about earlier. You get lots of vanilla through this one. You like it? It's got a fruitiness. I get sort of tropical fruit in this, believe it or not. You get sort of baked apple or banana, that type of character going through it. But it's a really nice style of Ardbeg. It's what we call like the house style. You get that really rich smokiness, the saltiness is all in there. So try a little bit or a little sip first without adding any water to it. Yeah, it's nice. That's what we, well, I would like to think we did, but it's a nice style of Ardbeg. I like it a lot. You know, and I think Ardbeg with that type of cask is really, I like to be doing that and bottling it all the time, but I mean, we can't be using new casks all the time, so that's why we have to use them twice. You know, but it's a really nice style, and what we'd call the house style. It's got that sweetness, full body, it's just got everything in it, so, yeah. Anyone like the cask sample? Yeah, nice one, thanks. So.
Are you using the same wort for all of these, or are you having different?
Different wood?
Wort.
Oh, the different wort, it's the same. It's a standard distillation all the way through for these. So we use the same thing, the same type of malt, same yeast, same everything. For all the whiskies that we do there, the big thing for us is consistency making the new make. So the whiskey is exactly the same in all those. The big flavour change is simply the wood, and it shows the importance of good quality casks and when you're making whiskey. That's what we believe in. So our policy is that we get good wood and then we can create things. You're very restricted what you can do with Scotch. We can only use oak wood. So it can be any type of oak, but we mainly use the European oak, American oak, and that's the importance of it. We're not allowed to use any other wood. So you're restricted a lot of the time by what we can do. So we're looking for different things and different things to do each time.
The smoking process where you dry them, is it the barley or the...
They'll dry the malt, yeah. The peating levels are the same in all the whiskies as well, but did anyone be lucky enough to try Supernova? Many years ago, we did an Ardbeg called Supernova, which was 103 parts per million of peat smoke. Really, really heavy. You know, we took a little small batch and we saw what we could try and do with it and what it did. Really big, powerful. People loved it. It became a bit of a cult Ardbeg because people wanted. We did a small batch, but we did 2 batches, 2009, 2010, and people really loved it. We just didn't make enough of it, you know. So, but it was an experiment that we tried.
How many bottles in a batch when you say batch?
It's usually in tons of malt we use it, you know, probably around 50 to 60 tons of malt, which would probably give you a few thousand bottles, you know, so it wasn't very much. It was just a little experiment to try it, so, but it's one of these. Now, we'll taste the last one on the card on the bottom left. This one is a limited edition that we did last year. We were quite lucky. About 2 weeks ago, back in the UK, Whiskey Magazine awarded this whiskey the world's best single malt for 2013. So this is Galileo, which we did last year. Unfortunately, it's just about all sold out. That's the trouble with it a wee bit. But this one was created using ex-Marsala casks, Italian fortified wine. So this one's got quite sweet and it's quite light front end to it. Called Galileo. I don't know if you've heard, but we've got a little experiment going on up in the space station. I don't know if some of you may have read it on the website, where we took some new make Ardbeg and some oak shavings, and it's in little sticks, the flash sticks that you get together. So about 18 months ago, we put some up in a rocket, and it's up in the space station going round and round. It's not whiskey, and it never, ever, ever will be whiskey, because whiskey has to be matured in Scotland, and up there doesn't count. You know, so whether it's above Scotland or not. So it's up there for 2 years, and we're going to see what happens to it. And we've got exactly the same sitting back in the warehouse where this picture is at Ardbeg. Now we're going to have a look and just see what it does. It's a bit of fun, really. But my boss, Dr. Lumsden, met some of the guys from the Nanaraks who do a lot of experimentation up there. And he says, do you fancy doing this? And he says, yeah, let's go for it. So hence the name Galileo. That's where this came from. As you know, we try and do stories about it. So we lay the whiskey down years in advance, and then when we come near to bottling it a year or two before, we start thinking about what we want to call it. So a little bit of a quirkiness about this. So this one is really nice. A little nose in this. Got a sweetness about it. So there you are, a little bit of what we call popcorn, butterkist for us, and sort of mango and lychee notes. It's got a really light sweetness about it. It's got a lovely, wonderful nose on it. So this one will try a little taste first with it. It's got a softness about it on your tongue, very soft and sweet at the start, and then you give it a few seconds and the peat starts to go. Covers your tongue, and at the back of your mouth you get that real rich, full smokiness again. Yeah. So it's a completely different style. This is one of the ones that we do as a limited edition. We do small amounts of these bottlings every year. Unfortunately, we'd like to do make more of them, but we've got so much to make for the 10-year-old over the last 3 to 4 years that we just do sort of small batches. So this year is when we mentioned it earlier on. We have Ardbeg coming this year. Funny name again, isn't it? Yeah. So look out for it. If you see it coming through, it should be with us in about the 1st of June. But this is what we do. So you can see the different styles. Again, the wood, European oak, used ex-Marsala casks, and used in it for, this is about 12 years old as well. So it's from 1999. So, but a really nice whiskey, really rich, really full-bodied, lots of sweetness. And it's amazing just what you can do with a peated malt and these different casks. Anything that's got a real full flavour, Ardbeg can cope with it. You know, so they don't compete. They sort of just, this seems to really mingle through really nicely. So.
Is this 100% barley malt you use?
There's 100% malted barley. We're not allowed to use any other grain. It's got to be barley. So single malt has to be made with malted barley and can only be done in pot stills for distillation. Yeah. So we've got a very strict law in Scotch whisky law that states we can only do certain things with it. So it's very important for us that we keep to that as well. So it helps to protect Scotch as well, this thing as well. So we're very lead of what we can do. So I hope you enjoyed the whiskies, which is the main thing. It's quite quick through. Time-wise, we're not bad. We're okay. We're okay for time. Somebody's on after us, but it shows you the different styles of whiskey. For me, making whiskey is a bit of a passion. Enjoy what we do. When you see people like yourselves enjoying what you make from a small island the other corner of the Atlantic Ocean, a long way away. It's great to see that you really enjoy what we do. I hope you keep enjoying Ardbeg. Keep an eye out for what we're doing, because we're doing lots of interesting stuff. And hopefully, or maybe I'll get back again next year. You never know. So keep on enjoying Ardbeg. And thank you very much for coming. Thank you. So if anyone's got a question, yeah, for God ask, just ask away. I don't think they're allowed to, are they, up there? At least I hope not. Yeah.
The last one was a cast sale.
Yeah.
What's the difference between that and the finished whiskey, the other whiskeys?
That one is just from a 10-year-old first fill cask in a warehouse. So that's what we get from that single cask.
What do you do after? I see if you're going to finish this off for a production run.
That's not that will go into 10-year-old along with a second fill cask. That's what we call it marrying at the distillery, because we've got first, second fill. So we have big vats at the distillery, and say if we're doing 10-year-old Ardbeg, we'll pick 150 barrels. Will be some first fill, some second fill. We then sample each one, check the colour, we check the nose, we taste it as well. We can only do a batch at a time. It takes a little while to make up, but we use that for consistency. That's how we make it up. Yeah.
What do you do with the tailings?
Sorry?
What do you do with the tailings when you distill?
With the tail at the end of the distillation, we only use the heart of the run, so the top and the tails are redistilled. So we've got the heads and the tails during the distillation that make up the next batch, and we only pull out the centre part of it each time. It's a continuous recycle. And then at the end we have, at the end there's something what we call pot ale and spent lees that we use, and we treat that as effluent. It's used as effluent, and we have to treat it before getting rid of it. But I mean, the main part for drinking is solely the heart of the run. We take the top, and we call it if you're looking for the proper words, it's 4-shot, middle, cut and faints, or we call it top, middle and tail, so we only keep the middle, for that. So. Right, yeah.
Is there enough peat to keep the?
Oh yeah, we've got hundreds of years worth. We're not gonna worry about it for a little while. So there's lots of it there. Yeah, don't worry, we won't run short. Yeah. Yep.
What's your second favorite Scotch?
My second favourite Scotch, probably Lafroig. I worked there for a lot of years, so I got a little bit of an attachment there as well. So, but I like that. I was born in my first two whiskies I ever tasted was 10-year-old Lafroig and 10-year-old Ardbeg. So,
How old were you?
How old was I? I was actually about 26, because when I first started, I didn't really drink whiskey. When I got to be the brewer or the supervisor, I thought I need to start drinking this stuff so that I can make a good assessment in this. So
We're going to talk about it.
you need to know. Yeah, you do need to know. Yeah, yep. So, okay.
What other Scotches would you say are comparable to Ardbeg or Lafroig?
In that style, I mean, obviously with us, you've got Lagavulin, which is everybody knows as well. There's also another one in Islay called Colilla, which Colilla does a little bit for malt, but mainly it's the big part for Johnny Walker, I think. So there's a huge amount for there. And we've also got Bowmore as well, which is a little bit lighter on the peat, but it's still a heavy peated malt. So, and then there's a style in Islay for anyone. We've got Bruichladdich who do a plain one. We've got Bunnahabhain as well, and we've got Kilhoman, which is a small little farm distillery, which is a newer one as well. So that's another heavy peated one. So.